going on? Got these books here. I'm gonna try to paint this picture. But okay. If you want to know about the 10 lost tribes and the 12 tribes, the 13 tribes, you have to go start here in Genesis. Genesis 49. Okay, so right here. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a see how Dan has a double. There's a part where that's good, but then Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path, and biteth down the horse's heels, so that the rider shall fall backwards. I have waited for thy salvation, O Lord. Okay? Now in this book right here, This America and Britain in Prophecy by David C. Pack. See, I got another book. It's also like the same freaking information, but I don't think the author's the same. But it's similar, okay? So, okay, I like some of the information from these guys, but they have a very Eurocentric view of the lost tribes, which obviously Dan, which right here it says Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. See, right there. That's from Genesis 49. And it says, from the Pioneer of Israel by Colonel Grawler, we find Dan settled in Ireland and Denmark. And although David Lee places Dan primarily in Ireland and Denmark, and Dan is also strongly represented in Wales and all of Scandinavian countries. See, and the flag of Wales depicts the dragon, which is one of the symbols of Dan, which is the serpent. Okay, so we located Dan. Dan is the Danes, which is the Vikings, okay? So that's white Israelites, okay? So, I mean, that's going to hurt a lot of people's feelings, man. But, also, here we go, Gad, okay? Check this out. Gad. Now, let's find him here. It's right after Dan. Okay? So, Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. Now, just by accident one day, I picked up this book right here, Cochise. Okay? Cochise was a Southwest Indian. One of the, they fought pretty well against the troops. A troop shall overcome them, but at the end they shall overcome. And in a way, these guys fucking fought that way really well. This is a great book, dude. But this tidbit of information in here, dude, look. If you look this up, you can look this up on Google. After the Gad Dan purchase in 1853, the Mexican border was moved farther to the south. Now the Americans claimed these deserts and mountains where the Apaches had lived for hundreds of years. Anyway, that's right there, Gad Dan purchase of 1853. And the Spaniards, man, had this text right here, 2nd Esdras, which there's a portion in here where it explains where Israelites left from Assyria through the ocean on boats and made a second exodus to the hidden land. Like there's this it's in Isaiah. It says, when thou goest through the fire, I'll be with thee, and I'll be with thee when thee cross the water. And it talks about that this trail was really, it was like fire on the one side and deep water on the other. And also I've seen depictions of Assyrian fighters, right? And then after they took the 10 tribes in as mercenaries, you see them depicted with warriors with no beards, like the Indians, man. And these dudes on the Assyrian hieroglyphs, it looked like there was Assyrians who had these big beards, these big dreadlock-looking beards, and then there was these other guys with them that didn't have no beard. And that's the Northern Kingdom, which is these tribes here that are mentioned in Genesis 49, but there's this switcheroony where this guy Ephraim, which is Joseph's son, and his tribe means the fullness of the Gentiles, and it says that Ephraim has mixed himself in with the people. This is in Isaiah, man. It mentions Ephraim over many times, and this is a character that people don't get it, that there's people in the world who have been divorced, like with the time when Moses had to be told again, he had to be taught again by God himself, like about his heritage and what was going on, what was what. And we are in such a time again where we've been divorced from, like, look, the Indian history has been, I mean, it's there, dude. There's volumes and volumes, and I have many of these volumes of books, but it just seems like no one ever digs in there really. But and these guys totally miss the second Ezra's in this whole thing. So a lot of this could be true, that a lot of Israelites are in Europe, but see, I see this Afrocentric method and this Eurocentric, and they're both wrong. Because if you add in the North American Indians, that what if they are Israelites? What if Dan, the Vikings, are Israelites? And it says here in this book, this is the Ojibwe people book, okay? Right here, it says this, right here, look. The Dakotas race might have been formed a tribe or a portion of the roving sons of Tartary, whom resemble in many essential respects. The Algics, on the other hand, may be descended from a portion of the 10 lost tribes of Israel, whom they resemble in many important particulars. Right here, it continues and it says, they bear close affinity or analogy to those chosen people of God, and they they have in some former era a close contact and intercourse with Hebrews, and beaming from their beliefs and customs and traditions of their patriarchs. Let me see. But anyway, it says that they may have, right here, assuming the ground which has been proved both provable and practicable at different eminent authors, that the American continent has been populated from eastern and northern shores of Asia. It is easy to believe that not only one, but portions of Asiatic tribes found their way thither, which account for the radical differences to be found in the language of several stocks of the American Aborigines. And look, I was watching a video, and this woman was speaking, and it was Ojibwa, and she the word Gad was in the word she said, oddly. But I also heard this audiobook where it was talking about ancient religions of China, and it says there was a Hebrew tribe there. They called them Jews, but that's these guys get it right, where they say that not all Israelites and not all Hebrews are Jews. That's just one tribe. They get that. That's true. That's a big misconception of Christian Zionism, that there's still lost tribes, and it was meant to be that way, kind of like the same way where in the Exodus, they didn't know they were the chosen people. They were totally oblivious to it. They just been assimilated into the culture, became fullness of the Gentiles, basically. And out of Egypt came a mixed multitude. And there's also in the scriptures, anyway, there's this book. In the scriptures, it talks about how if someone wants to convert and become an Israelite, whatever tribe the person that initiates them in, that's what tribe they actually get adopted into. And this is a lot, the mainstream churchianity totally misses it. But then again, they Eurocentric it and Afrocentric it and miss the Asiatic portion. And here's the thing too with this book right here, there is something called the X group halogen, and it says that the Great Lakes Indians has a DNA that they can trace to the hills of Galilee. And my grandma told me that when I was growing up, that yeah, some people said that our tribe might be one of the lost tribes of Israel, and and it kind of was like aha whatever, and I didn't even know what that was at the time, and come to find out, man, I found the book, our history book, and it's in there, and I also find Gad Dan Purchase in this other famous Indian, which is telling the story of a people through this one character too, because that's kind of how it is. They always got to blow it up and hang it on one guy's neck, like Geronimo. But anyway, these books right here have some points in them. But like I said, these guys are kind of ignorant of the second Exodus that came out of Ezra's. They bought the Gad Dan Purchase from Spain. Spain had these books because they had Jews in Spain who could read the Hebrew stuff. And if I'm guessing, if you could have someone compare the Indian language to the Hebrew language, I bet you there'll be some overlay. There'll be some similitude, but maybe not exact, because in the Indian language I find Asian language traces in it, in the way the pronunciation of words, but also from listening to the Hebrew Psalms sung in Hebrew and then hearing Indian words, I notice a lot of the same syllables. And even in Michigan, the names of certain places, like Pontiac, that's like Pontus from in the Bible. It's like Potiphar, like the dude's wife who messed with Joseph. Anyway, man, there's just types and shadows everywhere, and this isn't just an allegorical book. It's history, and you can trace it through the generations, dude, and through different cultures, man, just like it said, man. And there's no way just the cunning of men and craft and conspiracy could pull this off. This is supernatural here, and there is a trail of breadcrumbs, and you can prove things, and like that, like look, and most people are totally ignorant of what's right in front of our face. But part of the scripture said that they'd be scattered to the four corners of the earth. So that means like any nationality, any race you want to call it. Potentiality, man, like that they could be lost Israelites too, man, lost tribes. Because what's to say a tribe didn't get split up and sifted and gets, like, look, one tribe got reduced to 8 people, but those 8 people got sold to 8 different boats that took them off in 8 different directions, and all these people ended up starting another family off somewhere to the point where they forgot their history, and they're just ignorant now again. And then here you come back with this book, what they're saying is just a Eurocentric book, but it's not true. There's those who cut the sinew is the name of the Chinese Israelites, and what's funny is our people's names talks about cooking. And it was the Chinese Israelites. Their name was for the way they cut their meat, which is to do with cooking, which I thought was quite interesting. So, but anyway, yeah, man. Especially with the Indians, and you see their totem system, and you see this Genesis 49. I think there's overlay. And dude, if you look at a cross and a totem pole, the dimensions are identical. Like in a way, when they seen Jesus was on the cross, in a way it was like they already had the totem pole as a sign of the cross already in their culture, which is odd, which is like anyway, there's more overlay of this in Numbers and Chronicles, and I think in Joshua there's different accounts of when the tribes were together and how they dispersed. But anyway, yeah, check these books out here. And you always leave a comment, man, if you need any pointers or anything, any clarifications.